The city sleeps below, its skyline shimmering like a sea of scattered stars. In a penthouse perched above it all, a man paces, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. Luxury surrounds him, gleaming glass walls, an array of expensive watches, a silent grand piano. But none of it fills the hollow ache in his chest. On the sleek desk, a photograph leans against a crystal frame. A fleeting smile, a quiet laugh, a girl he can't forget. Empty wine glasses and a half-lit candle tell of sleepless nights, memories replaying like old film reels. His phone buzzes, notifications ignored, as if hoping she will appear without a trace. One night, one magical encounter, that was all it took. And yet the question lingers, heavy and unrelenting. Where did she go? The camera lingers on his thoughtful gaze, a man of power rendered vulnerable by love and longing. The morning sun filtered through thin, worn curtains, casting soft, golden light across a modest apartment. The furniture was simple, functional, a quiet reflection of a life built on necessity rather than luxury. In the small kitchen, the girl moved with practiced efficiency, flipping pancakes and humming a tune that had nothing to do with her struggles, everything to do with hope. Her hands were rough from work, yet tender when she lifted a plate for her children, who sat cross-legged at the table, chattering about school and small victories that only they would notice. She wore no designer labels, no hint of opulence. Her clothes were faded but clean, her hair tied back in a practical bun. But there was a light in her eyes, a resilience that could not be dimmed by life's hardships. Every movement, every laugh, every sigh, every glance spoke of a woman who carried the weight of responsibility, yet refused to let it crush her spirit. Outside, the city moved with ruthless energy. Cars honked, people hurried past glass towers that gleamed like unattainable dreams. From the window, she watched the world that seemed so far removed from her own, a world of polished shoes and marble floors, of champagne toasts and whispered boardroom deals. She did not envy it, not really. But there was a quiet curiosity, a memory of a night when those worlds had brushed against each other. Her thoughts drifted, as they often did, to that brief encounter months ago. She had been walking home late, the chill in the air biting at her cheeks, when a sleek car had pulled up. He had stepped out, all tailored suits and confidence, yet his eyes had betrayed something softer, something fleeting that mirrored her own longing for connection. One night, one shared laugh, one stolen moment. She had tucked that memory away like a fragile gem, careful not to let it break the rhythm of her life. The apartment was small, but it was alive. A plant on the windowsill leaned toward the sun, stubbornly thriving despite the cracks in the wall. A stack of books sat on a worn table, pages softened by time and repeated readings, proof that she nurtured her mind as much as her home. In a corner, a framed photograph caught the light, a simple snapshot of her past life, a reminder of her dreams and, more importantly, of her independence. She had learned to survive, to find joy in the small things, to treasure moments that money could not buy. Her children ran around, their laughter filling the apartment with warmth. She watched them, her chest tightening with a mix of pride and fatigue. Each day was a balancing act: school runs, part-time work, cooking, cleaning, and the endless worry about bills. Yet she carried it all with grace, never once letting the exhaustion or worry show more than a flicker in her eyes. There was dignity in her struggle, a quiet heroism that went unnoticed by the bustling city outside. The contrast between her world and his could not have been starker. He moved through marble towers with power at his fingertips, his life measured in acquisitions, deals, and prestige. Yet she realized something he perhaps did not. Wealth could never purchase warmth, authenticity, or the bond she shared with her children. Her world was messy, imperfect, and entirely hers. And within that imperfection, she found beauty. As she wiped down the counters, her fingers brushed against a small charm bracelet tucked in a drawer. She paused, tracing the tiny silver heart with a thoughtful smile. It was a relic from that night, the only token she had kept. It was delicate, unassuming, yet it carried the weight of a memory that neither time nor circumstance could erase. For a brief second, she imagined him, sitting alone in some high-rise office, replaying the same night, the same laugh, the same fleeting connection. She shook her head lightly, tucking the bracelet back into its hiding place. Life had moved forward, and so had she. There was work to do, children to care for, dreams to nurture in quiet corners of her mind. Yet the memory lingered, a ghost of what might have been, a reminder of the fleeting intersection of two lives from different worlds. As the day progressed, she stepped outside, carrying groceries, balancing a bag in one hand and a child's hand in the other. The city loomed around her, a cacophony of movement and ambition, yet she navigated it with calm determination. There was no grandiose gesture, no demand for recognition. Just life lived with courage, warmth, and dignity. The camera lingers on her face as she smiles at a small passerby who waved, a nod to her innate kindness. In that moment, she is not a figure of wealth or power, but of humanity, resilient, grounded, and deeply relatable. The audience feels her strength, rooting for her, sensing that her story is just beginning, and that whatever twists lie ahead, she will face them with heart and integrity. The night had deepened outside the glass walls of his penthouse, city lights stretching endlessly into the distance, twinkling like distant stars he could almost, but not quite, reach. He sat hunched over his sleek desk, laptop open, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Each search was meticulous, precise, yet frustratingly unfruitful. Social media profiles scrolled past in a blur. Hundreds of faces, some familiar, most strangers. Every Jane Doe and Jay Smith could be her, and every dead end tightened the knot in his chest. He had called friends, private investigators, even casual acquaintances from that fleeting night, but every lead seemed to dissolve into air. His usual power, the influence, the money, the ability to bend the world to his will, felt useless in the face of this one absence. For the first time in years, he realized that wealth could not buy what he wanted most: connection, intimacy, authenticity. His office reflected his life. Opulence meticulously arranged, polished floors, expensive artwork adorning the walls. Yet despite the grandeur, there was a profound emptiness. A glass of untouched whiskey sat near his elbow, half a bottle of expensive wine opened earlier in a vain attempt to numb longing. A phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from colleagues, partners, and socialites, but he ignored them all. None of it mattered. None of it reached the corner of his heart that belonged to her. He leaned back, closing his eyes, letting memories invade him. The sound of her laugh, a fleeting glance under the dim glow of the city lights, her hand brushing against his in that single, perfect moment. They had been small, almost imperceptible gestures, but they had left a mark deeper than he had ever anticipated. And now, months later, they haunted him relentlessly. Hours passed, or maybe it was minutes. Time had become meaningless. He juggled multiple searches simultaneously, cross-referencing profiles, scanning photographs, sending messages to acquaintances in distant cities. His assistants had long given up asking questions. They had never seen him like this, frantic, vulnerable, obsessed. Power was useless here. Money was irrelevant, and still he could not stop. Outside, life carried on for everyone else. The girl he sought moved through her day with unremarkable grace, juggling work, children, and responsibilities that would have crushed someone else. She did not know that a man in a penthouse hundreds of feet above the city was thinking of her, retracing the faintest traces of her life, trying desperately to connect with a world she had moved through so quietly. There was a tension that pulled at him constantly. What if she had moved on entirely? The thought struck him cold. Perhaps she had found happiness in her own way. Perhaps she had built a life that no longer had room for him. His chest tightened at the mere possibility, a mix of fear and longing that left him restless. He paused to look out at the city, sprawling and indifferent, a million lives intersecting in fleeting moments. Yet here he was, alone, consumed by the memory of one. The contrast was stark. The world at his feet, yet a single connection, so fleeting, so fragile, beyond his reach. It was a humbling realization that left him silent for long minutes. The night grew quieter, but his search continued. Fingers typed, scrolled, paused, typed again. A new message appeared, an unverified tip about a woman living modestly in the city. His pulse quickened. Could this be her? He did not know, but a glimmer of hope pierced the fog of frustration. The possibility was enough to propel him forward. Somewhere unknowingly, she lived her life, busy yet content. And somewhere above, a man who had everything was searching for the one thing money could never buy. Her presence, her life intertwined with his, even if only for a moment. After weeks of relentless searching, tracing faint leads and chasing fragments of memory, the moment had arrived. The address he had uncovered through a trusted contact was unassuming, a low-rise apartment building tucked away on a quiet street, far from the glittering towers he inhabited. He parked his sleek car a few blocks away, heart pounding with anticipation and a flicker of nervousness he had not felt in years. The elevator ride up was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. He rehearsed what he would say, what he might feel, but no preparation could steel him for the reality that awaited. As the door to the apartment slid open, he stepped inside and was immediately struck by the warmth of the space. Simple furnishings, sunlight spilling through sheer curtains, laughter echoing in a way that felt alive and grounding. And then he saw them. Two small children, identical in their bright eyes and infectious giggles, running toward a woman with the same fluid grace he remembered. She bent down, scooping them up effortlessly, her voice soft but firm, playful yet commanding. The sight hit him like a thunderclap. She wasn't alone. She had built a life full and complete when he had never anticipated. The twins were oblivious to his presence at first, absorbed in their morning ritual of giggles and games. The woman noticed him when one of them ran past, knocking over a small toy car. Her gaze met his, and for a moment, time seemed to still. He saw a spark of recognition, a subtle tightening around her eyes, but also something he had not seen before: strength, independence, self-possession. She had grown into someone unshakable, someone who no longer depended on the fleeting magic of one night to define her worth. His chest tightened. Shock, curiosity, a pang of fear, sharp and unexpected. Would she reject him? Would the life she had built leave any room for him? Every instinct that had guided him in the corporate world, confidence, charm, authority, felt irrelevant. Here, in this humble apartment filled with sunlight and laughter, he was powerless. "Hello," he said finally, voice measured, though it trembled with a vulnerability he could barely mask. She regarded him calmly, neither startled nor overjoyed. "It's been a while," she replied, her tone neutral but steady, a quiet assertion of control. She set the twins down, brushing imaginary crumbs from her apron. "You found me." "Yes," he admitted, swallowing hard. I couldn't." He paused, searching for words, realizing none would fully capture the storm of emotion he felt. "I couldn't stop thinking about you." A small, knowing smile tugged at the corner of her lips, but her eyes remained guarded. "Life goes on," she said simply, glancing at the twins playing nearby. "Some things, some people are memories, not destinations." He winced, feeling the weight of her words, yet he could not turn away. There was an undeniable pull, a magnetic force that had guided him across the city, across months of searching, to this very moment. But he was no longer certain that his presence would be welcomed. The twins ran up to him, tugging at his coat. Their laughter was infectious, and for the first time since he arrived, he smiled genuinely. There was no pretense here, no business deals, no social expectations, just pure, unfiltered life. He realized in that moment that she had built something incredible, a world that thrived on love, resilience, and daily victories, not money or power. He looked back at her, searching her face for any hint of invitation or resentment. She met his gaze, steady and unwavering, but softened just enough to acknowledge that the past had happened, that their lives had intersected, and that she had survived it. She did not lean in, she did not recoil. She simply existed, a testament to her own strength. "Twins?" he asked quietly, nodding toward the children. "Yes," she said with a small shrug, almost matter of fact. "They keep me busy, keep me grounded, keep me happy." There was pride in her voice, tempered by the subtle undercurrent of challenge. "And I don't need anyone to complete that." His throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to bridge the gap between the worlds they inhabited, but the words faltered. Instead, he simply nodded, allowing himself a moment to absorb the magnitude of what he had stumbled into. A life lived fully, a woman who had grown beyond his reach, yet still stirred something undeniable in him. For the first time, he saw her, not as the girl from that night, the fleeting fantasy, but as a woman of depth, resilience, and unwavering independence. And yet, despite the shock, despite the uncertainty, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to be part of this life if he could earn it, not demand it. The twins tugged at his hand again, pulling him toward a game he had never played, into a laughter-filled moment he had never known. He allowed himself to follow, realizing that this unexpected twist, this surprise, this reality, was perhaps the most powerful moment of all. Life had moved on, yes, but it had also created space for new beginnings. The memory surfaced unbidden, vivid as if it had happened yesterday. The bar was dimly lit, amber lights casting long shadows across polished wooden tables. The hum of conversation and clinking glasses filled the air, but for a moment the world shrank around them, leaving only two figures in the center of a small, golden spotlight. He had noticed her first, standing quietly at the corner of the room, her posture unassuming yet striking. She wasn't dressed for attention, just simple jeans and a soft sweater, but there was an undeniable warmth in her eyes that drew him closer than he intended. He, in his tailored suit and crisp shirt, represented a world she would never inhabit, yet in that instant it didn't matter. Their first words were cautious, playful, a delicate dance of curiosity and wit. He teased gently, she laughed, and something subtle but electric passed between them, a connection that transcended the vast gulf of wealth and circumstance. A shared joke about the bartender's terrible playlist, a brush of hands as she reached for her drink, a fleeting glance that lingered just a beat too long. These small gestures imprinted themselves on memory like delicate carvings in stone. He remembered her laughter, unforced and genuine, spilling across the space like sunlight. He had been used to flattery, smiles meant to charm, but hers was different, authentic, human. And in that authenticity, he had glimpsed a world he didn't know he was missing, a life unburdened by the trappings of success, yet richer than any deal, any boardroom triumph he had ever known. She, too, remembered the night in fragments, the way he had listened, really listened, to the stories she offered in quiet bursts between sips of wine. There was a kindness in him, fleeting yet undeniable, that had cracked the wall she had built around herself. For a few hours, they were equals, two souls colliding briefly before the world pulled them apart again. The memory ended abruptly, like the final note of a song fading into silence. Yet the echo remained, the warmth of her laughter, the brush of their hands, the fleeting spark that neither wealth nor circumstance could diminish. That night had been brief, inconsequential to anyone else, but for them, it had left an indelible mark. Even now, months later, it haunted them both, a quiet reminder of connection, of longing, and of the fragile, enduring magic of a single, perfect encounter. The twins had settled into a game, giggling as they chased each other around the modest living room. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily in the air. The CEO stood awkwardly near the doorway, feeling the weight of his own presence in this small, warm world he had never been part of. Every instinct told him to speak, to reach out, to bridge the chasm between the life he had known and the one she had built, but he hesitated. She watched him carefully from across the room, arms crossed loosely, leaning against the counter as though the walls themselves supported her vigilance. Her heart raced, a mixture of curiosity and caution. She had imagined this reunion in countless ways, but none had prepared her for the reality. The man from that night, the fleeting spark of memory, now standing in the very room she called home. I didn't want to intrude," he said finally, voice low, careful. I had to see you, to make sure you were okay." His eyes flicked to the twins, then back to her, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his usually confident demeanor. She gave a small nod, keeping her expression neutral. "We're fine," she said, not elaborating. Her tone was firm but not cold, a delicate balance she had perfected over years of protecting herself and her children. "Life's complicated," she added, letting the words hang in the air like a quiet challenge. He swallowed, feeling suddenly fragile. In his world, words were weapons, tools of persuasion, commands that bent others to his will. Here, they seemed inadequate, powerless. Every instinct to impress, to dominate, to charm felt absurd against the simple reality of her life. And yet he could not leave. Not now. Not after months of searching, after the nights haunted by a single memory. The twins ran past again, one tugging at his sleeve. He bent down to smile at them, offering a cautious hand. "Hi," he said, gently uncertain. They regarded him with shy curiosity, laughter bubbling at the edge of recognition, and then scampered back to their play. He straightened, a small relief washing over him, but it was fleeting. Her eyes never left him, scanning every subtle gesture, every hesitant step. She noticed the slight tremor in his hands, the way his jaw tightened as he fought for composure. And she recognized the longing, raw and unpolished, that had always been buried beneath his polished exterior. She wanted to trust him, part of her did. But the responsibility of these children, the careful life she had built, demanded caution. "You've changed," she said finally, voice softening slightly. "Not in a bad way, just different." It was an observation, not a judgment, but it carried the weight of years lived apart. He nodded slowly. "I have," he admitted, "but I don't know if it's enough." His gaze dropped to the floor for a moment, then lifted to meet hers again. "I want to be part of your life, yours and theirs," he added quietly, nodding toward the twins. "If you'll let me." She paused, studying him. There was sincerity in his eyes, a vulnerability that both unsettled and tempted her. She wanted to believe in him, to open her heart, but she could not, would not, ignore the stakes. "It's complicated," she said, letting a fragile smile touch her lips. "You can't just step into our lives and expect things to be the same as before. Things have changed." "I know," he whispered. "I know I don't deserve anything, but I'm willing to try." His words hung in the air, tentative, honest, and full of possibility. For a moment the room was silent, the twins, laughter the only sound threading through the tension. Their eyes met again, and the unspoken challenge passed between them. Could they navigate this slow, delicate dance? Could the past and present find a way to coexist, or would fear and pride keep them apart? In that quiet, stretched-out moment, the story of their lives, separate yet intertwined, felt as fragile and precious as the sunlight catching the dust motes in the room. And in the tension, the hesitation, the flickers of hope, the audience could feel it too, the slow burn of love, trust, and human connection that had yet to fully ignite. Days passed, measured not in board meetings or stock reports, but in small, ordinary moments that carried extraordinary weight. The CEO found himself lingering at the edge of their world, unsure at first how to bridge the chasm between polished suits and playful chaos. The twins ran around the apartment, toys scattering like confetti, and he realized that in this unstructured, imperfect space, he had no guide, no script to follow, just presence. He began with small gestures, helping with breakfast, kneeling to tie tiny shoelaces, listening to bedtime stories with careful attention. The twins responded cautiously at first, peering up with curiosity, then gradually offering smiles, shy giggles, and eventually hugs. Every interaction, every quiet act of thoughtfulness was a step toward belonging, not purchased, not commanded, but earned. She watched him from across the room, her initial skepticism tempered by a growing warmth. He was not the man who had chased her across cities, or the one who wielded power like a weapon. Here he was learning humility. His polished world, the sleek cars, the high-rise offices, the glinting watches, was irrelevant here. What mattered were pancakes flipped with care, bedtime stories read aloud, the quiet patience of someone willing to meet her life on her terms. There were small victories that made her heart soften. The way he remembered the twins' favorite bedtime songs, how he never overstepped, how he allowed her to remain in control even while trying to belong. She began to see that trust was possible, that vulnerability could be met with respect, that love did not have to be intrusive or overwhelming. And he, in turn, discovered joy in simplicity. He laughed at spilled cereal, delighted in bedtime giggles, and learned to savor these ordinary moments as more precious than any deal or accolade. Each day, he became a little more grounded, a little more human. Even their quiet conversations, filled with hesitant glances and gentle smiles, carried weight. He shared fragments of his world, She shared fragments of hers, and slowly a bridge formed, not built on wealth or influence, but on effort, patience, and genuine care. The twins tugged at his sleeves one afternoon, beckoning him into a game he could barely follow, yet he laughed freely, embracing the chaos. She watched, heart softening, realizing that perhaps he could coexist in this world she had built, not as an intruder, but as a companion willing to earn his place. By evening, the apartment hummed with warmth and life. The laughter of children, the quiet pride in her smile, and the tentative, genuine smile on his face formed a tableau of connection being carefully nurtured. It was not dramatic, it was not instant, but it was real, and in that reality, the audience felt the slow, undeniable formation of family, trust, and love. Rain tapped softly against the windows, streaking the city lights into shimmering trails. The twins had fallen asleep, leaving the apartment quiet except for the rhythmic patter outside. He stood near the window, watching the droplets race down the glass, and finally turned to her, vulnerability etched into his expression. "I've made mistakes," he began, voice low but steady. "I thought I could just sweep into your life and make up for lost time, but I see now love isn't about power or wealth or control. It's about presence. It's about being here, truly here for you and for them." She looked at him, heart pounding, eyes glistening. Memories of past disappointments, fleeting hope, and heartbreak rose like waves. "I've learned to protect them," she said, voice trembling. "I can't risk my heart or theirs for someone who might leave." He stepped closer, keeping distance not to overwhelm. "I don't want to buy your trust. I want to earn it every day in small ways, just as I've been trying." His gaze softened, full of honesty and regret. For a long moment, silence hung between them, filled only by the rain. Then, from the hallway, the twins' sleepy voices called out, "Daddy!" A small, tentative recognition. She glanced at him, and he knelt, opening his arms. Hesitant, the children ran to him, laughter and warmth filling the room, washing away months of fear and distance. She watched, tears sliding down her cheeks, the walls around her heart slowly dissolving. In that intimate, rain-drenched moment, past and present collided. Vulnerability met courage, love met patience, and the world outside seemed to pause. It was not instant, it was not perfect, but it was real. And in that authenticity, transformation bloomed, power and wealth rendered powerless before the raw force of connection, trust, and love. Weeks passed, and life settled into a rhythm neither of them had anticipated, but both had quietly hoped for. The CEO no longer arrived as a visitor or intruder. He came as a partner in small, meaningful ways, earning trust with patience rather than grand gestures. He learned the art of listening without judgment, of helping without taking control, of showing care without overwhelming. Breakfasts became a shared affair. The twins laughed as he fumbled with pancakes and spilled syrup onto the counter, and she couldn't help but smile at his earnest clumsiness. The apartment, once a place of structure and routine, was now alive with warmth and laughter, punctuated by the soft hum of his learning to exist in a world far removed from boardrooms and luxury. Evenings were spent in quiet companionship. He helped with homework, listened to bedtime stories, and discovered that true satisfaction came not from closing deals, but from guiding two small lives with patience and love. She watched him closely, noticing the subtle changes. Humility replacing hubris, attentiveness replacing self-interest, genuine joy replacing restless longing. The twins thrived in the newfound stability, their laughter filling every corner of the apartment. They tugged at him for games, bedtime stories, and quiet walks in the park. Each day, their bond grew, bridging the gap between past uncertainty and present security. She saw it all, the ease in his interactions, the respect in his demeanor, and felt her heart soften further, allowing trust and hope to take root. Cinematic moments punctuated these days. The sunlight catching his hair as he lifted the twins into the air, the soft glow of a dinner table illuminated by candles, laughter echoing as spaghetti became an accidental mess, quiet glances shared across the room, hands brushing lightly while folding laundry. Each scene, ordinary yet extraordinary, reinforced the idea that love, connection, and family were built in the little moments, not the grandiose ones. They began to share dreams again, not the fleeting fantasies of a single night, but the grounded, achievable aspirations of a life lived together. He learned to find joy in simplicity. She learned that trust could be rebuilt, and the twins flourished in an environment rich with love, attention, and stability. By the end of each day, the apartment resonated with warmth, laughter, and a sense of belonging. The CEO, once defined by wealth and power, had found grounding in empathy and care. She, once wary and cautious, had discovered that vulnerability could coexist with strength. And the twins, innocent yet perceptive, thrived in a home where love was tangible and enduring. In these quiet, shared moments, the audience witnesses a full-circle transformation. Power humbled by humanity, independence complemented by trust, and life reshaped not by status or wealth, but by patience, respect, and unwavering kindness. The sun dipped low over the city, casting golden hues across streets and rooftops, painting everything in warmth and possibility. In a quiet park nearby, the twins ran freely, laughter spilling into the air like music, their joy uncontained and contagious. The girl watched them, a soft smile on her lips, while the CEO walked beside her, hand lightly brushing hers, the world around them fading into a gentle blur. It was in these ordinary, unremarkable moments that the extraordinary was revealed. Love, kindness, and empathy could not be bought. True wealth was measured not in power or luxury, but in trust, connection, and the courage to be vulnerable. Life, with its unexpected turns and twists, had brought them here, not through grand gestures or luck, but through integrity, patience, and resilience. They shared a quiet glance, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The past had shaped them, the challenges had tested them, and now, together, they had built something lasting. The twins tugged at their hands, pulling them toward new adventures, while the city hummed softly around them, indifferent yet beautiful. A narration whispers, almost like a heartbeat. Happiness is not bought, it is nurtured, it is earned, and it is shared in moments both small and profound with those we choose to love. The camera lingers on the trio walking into the sunset, shadows long, smiles bright, hearts open. A life rebuilt, love rediscovered, and a quiet promise that the most valuable riches are found in human connection.